Thank you, Kyle. All right, so welcome to the September Grafana community or Grafana Alloy community call. We don't have a strict agenda for today, so I'm going to open the floor in a moment to any questions from our community members who are here. Otherwise, we'll probably discuss a little bit of the upcoming 1.11 release. Release candidate was cut earlier today with the full official release most likely in a couple of days. So before we do anything, we'll open up for a moment if anybody has any questions, and I'll confirm that nobody posted any in Slack. All right, I don't see anything that was raised specifically in Slack for the meeting. So before we started recording, Paul, you were starting to talk about the 1.11 release. Do you want to start that discussion?
Yeah, I was just browsing through the changelog just to see what went in. There are quite a lot of changes. There are some big upgrades to Prometheus dependencies, OpenTelemetry dependencies, and also smaller but still useful things like the fact that the Windows installer is signed, so you wouldn't get an annoying pop-up if you're installing Alloy.
Yeah, as Paulin mentioned, the Prometheus dependency, so all the Prometheus components within Alloy have been updated from a version 2 path to version 3. This brings in support for some things that within Grafana Cloud are not yet fully supported, like UTF-8 labels, but also adds Prometheus Remote Write v2 support. Internally, we're seeing 50 to 60% network savings on a lot of our workloads from switching to v2. There's some extra cost on CPU and memory, but internally we're seeing some savings on network. That's helpful from a cost perspective. Can discuss Remote Write v2 a little more further on in the meeting if we'd like. Also a big upgrade, as was mentioned, to OTel dependencies. We were a few releases behind. The Windows exporter has been updated again as that continues to upstream be modernized and refactored. Trying to look through the changelog as well to see anything else interesting. If you're leveraging any database observability components, either within Grafana Cloud's database observability, or you can just use the components without the Grafana Cloud dependency. You just then have to build your own dashboards, alerts, etc. Around it. Those have been updated for MySQL and Postgres. And a lot of bug fixes and small enhancements here or there. If anybody has any thoughts or questions, feel free to just hit the raise hand button, and I'll pause at any point. It looks like Kyle, you unmuted. I'm not sure if you had a topic you wanted to contribute to.
I just also wanted to call out on top of adding like Remote Write v2 support for wall queue and the Remote Write component. There's a couple of fixes in this release for the Remote Write component that should hopefully lead to less resource utilization as well.
Cool. I can talk briefly about the Remote Write v2. The protocol is essentially a compression algorithm in the protocol. So rather than having all of your string labels throughout your data, your samples, your metadata, etc., there's kind of a symbol list at the top of the request, and then all of the data is basically deduplicated everywhere else where you would have had a string label. You just have an index reference to that list. So that's where you get a lot of the network savings from. But the way the various write-ahead log wall implementations work means there's extra processing required before you can send the message, which is where that extra CPU and memory cost comes from. We're looking into various ways to continue optimizing that, but for now at least, there's I think it's 10-ish% extra cost there, but that depends on your workload and various other things. But that's what we're internally experiencing. Go ahead, Pauline.
By the way, I see improvements to the Periscope components, which is great. But it also made me think that in the coming months, we'll probably see support for profiles in OpenTelemetry components. We haven't prioritized anything yet, but sooner or later, there definitely will be auto native components in Alloy that also support profiles. And I suppose we'll have to make auto native equivalents for the kind of thing that Periscope specific components are doing right now. But I haven't checked with the Periscope team, but I think there will be more soon in the realm of auto and Periscope coexisting together, because the upstream collector already has support for profiles in some components. Just a matter of time until we have as well. I think it might be happening more or less around the time when Grafana Cloud also has a profile support for the auto gateway, because at the moment I don't think there is. I think right now there's logs, metrics, and traces. Not sure about profiles. Probably it isn't there.
I didn't have any other topics that I was planning to bring up in lieu of any Q&A. So open the floor again if anyone else has any other topics they'd like to discuss or questions they have. One thing that we have thought about doing more in the community call, internally we have a proposal review meeting for the public Alloy Proposals Board, where we consider GitHub issues that are either proposed by community members or others for new features or new behavior within Alloy. Right now, there's not a whole lot in there that's very interesting, that's in the active or likely to be accepted or declined state. There's one about supporting Prometheus push gateway that might be interesting, and these are often in states where if there are interested community members who'd like to contribute, these are an interesting place to start. We're also looking to, this next quarter, investigate kind of a more standardized multi-tenancy approach. We've seen a lot of GitHub issues and comments from community members around multi-tenancy in Alloy and the way it's supported or not supported in the different ecosystems that we support. So if you have any interest in those conversations, please jump in to those issues there on the Alloy Proposals Board. I see Matt asked about Prometheus Remote Write v2. Matt, I'm not sure if you just joined or if you've had to split your focus, but we discussed that earlier on the call. So this next release, the 1.11, that the release candidate came out today, and the full release likely within the next few days, early next week, does support Remote Write v2 in both the Prometheus Remote Write component, which is based off of the upstream Prometheus wall and Remote Write, and the experimental Prometheus Write queue, which is based on the wall queue implementation that started in Grafana. Both of those support Remote Write v2. I have the numbers for wall queue because that's what we use internally. In our workloads, we've seen about a 50 to 60% network savings at a cost of 10%-ish CPU and memory. So that'll vary depending on workload and environment. But we're seeing some pretty significant network savings like we expected from that. So that's internally, we're rolling it out throughout our various uses of Alloy to get those savings for network ingress egress costs. So
you do need to use experimental it's experimental in both components, essentially. Just also as a call out.
Thanks for clarifying that, Kyle. Go ahead, Paula.
I think the Prometheus write queue component is experimental itself as well. So in the coming months, it will gradually become more and more stable. So there will be more happening in that space. Yeah, there'll be some code improvements, documentation improvements, and hopefully more and more people will start using Prometheus write queue as opposed to the remote write. It does have some benefits, but it just needs some polishing.
Leave another minute up here for any last comments. Otherwise, we'll wrap up relatively early. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming and participating. And yeah, we'll see you next month.